And we are live. Good morning and welcome back to the Gym and a Crypto episode 300.
300.
Yes.
Oh yeah. 300.
Today is Monday, December 10th, and I'm King.
And I'm Bitcoin Zay. And we're here to bridge the gap between cryptocurrency and the community Monday through Friday at 10-ish. 300 strong, man.
300. Now, you know, today we'll be doing a 30,000 cryptic coin giveaway, but we'll be doing that toward the end of the show. Before we do that, we have to announce a very special guest. We have a huge show today. Tons of information. You know, you kind of get the firsthand account of what's going on, as well as the news and the background around this. But if you've been with us from the beginning, you know, we've talked numerous times about the infamous Silk Road case with Ross Ulbricht. Well, today we have his mother here live with us to talk about that case, to talk about his unjust sentencing, and kind of what's going on with that case right now and how you can help as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce Lynn Ulbricht.
Lynn Ulbricht, welcome.
Hi, I'm so honored to be the 300th guest. That's great.
Yes, I think this is actually you're the perfect guest to have for this show on this 300th episode, because everything we talk about is something that's going on right now, as far as not just your son's case, but, you know, we were just talking before the show about the overreaching powers of the government and the police state. We're starting to become. That's something we always preach here. So it's a good show to remind everybody that the importance of cryptocurrency and why we're going in this direction.
Absolutely.
All right. So before we give some folks a refresher for those who don't know or never heard of Silk Road. It was an online, quote unquote, black market. And the first modern darknet market, known as a platform for selling many things. They sell good things and bad things. Some of the bad things, though, the government liked to key in on, of course, was the illegal drugs, and just the fact they didn't have access to it. It was as part of the dark web. It was activated and operated as part of the Tor hidden service. And long story short, Ross Ulbricht, again, he was the one who started that website. This was like the Craigslist for the dark web. You can go on, you can buy wherever you want privately. There are good things being sold in exchange. There are bad things being sold in exchange. Free market. But on February 4th, 2015, after his arrest, Ross Ulbricht was convicted by a jury of 7 charges, including charges and engaging in a continuing criminal enterprise, narcotics trafficking, money laundering, and computer hacking. He faced 30 years to life in prison. However, he received life in prison. The government also accused Ulbricht of paying for the murders of at least 5 people. However, there was no evidence that the murders actually were even carried out or the murders were real. And the accusations never became formal charges. And one thing, of course, that a lot of news sites and things like to leave out of this story is 2 other people who were involved in this whole case and operation and murders, which were I believe a DEA agent and a Secret Service agent. So some of America's own were involved in that. You know, before we get started, what can you tell us? You know, when you first heard this news, he was arrested. What did you hear about the case and what he was supposedly involved in? And, you know, can you give us your side of that?
Sure. And I'd like to just amend a few things you said. Just
sure.
First of all, you couldn't buy anything because there was an ethical, according to the administration of Silk Road, said nothing that harmed or used force was allowed. So, for instance, there's nothing related to pedophilia, no stolen property, no weapons, no, you know, along those lines, nothing that could create a victim. It all had to be voluntary, and drugs were considered voluntary. Now, 75% of the drugs were user amounts of cannabis. It wasn't like, you know, it was all horrible drugs. I'm not saying those drugs weren't on there and people didn't choose to exchange them. And I'm certainly not advocating drugs. But just to put it in perspective, it was mostly cannabis and mostly small amounts. The other thing is, as far as the convictions, to be clear, these were conspiracy convictions in the case of like computer hacking and money laundering. It was not that he did it. He was a conspirator because they said he was operating the website. And there's even question about when he was operating the website. But in any case, so it wasn't that they said he sold drugs. They never accused him of actually selling drugs or actually hacking a computer. But that's what the conspiracy laws do. They widen that criminal umbrella so that you can just be somewhat attached, or you could be a website host Like, for instance, Jeff Bezos, when a girl bought cyanide and killed herself with it, the logic here is he should be responsible for her death.
And that's the
This
same
is
with
the same thing.
Craigslist, Backpay. So everybody who makes a successful website that people use, Facebook. I mean, what goes on
totally.
Facebook?
Murders go on Facebook Live.
I mean, we know that for a fact.
Yeah, exactly.
Terrorist activity, I mean, all kinds of things.
Voting, apparently voting fraud in the United States goes on Facebook as well. That's a pretty big case, I would think.
Oh, yeah.
I would think so. So if this really sets a precedent, I guess if you're rich enough and powerful enough, then you get to get a pass. But this sets a precedent for web hosts to be held criminally liable for whatever goes on their site, whether they know it or not, whether anything. They're responsible, and in fact, they're guilty of the act. As far as the kingpin charge, that continuing criminal enterprise, that was given to Ross as a threat because he didn't cooperate initially, and well, he never did. And they said, if you don't, we're going to load you up with the kingpin charge, and that has its own life sentence. Wow. This is something you give to El Chapo or or Pablo Escobar, or people who murder people, assassinate thousands of people and to call a website host a kingpin is just really abusing government power once again. And so that's what they did.
Was he was he tried in New York?
He was, and that's another question, because he was had no connection to New York. He was arrested in California. That's where he lived. But it's obvious the reason he was tried in New York is that
he lived in California, and they had the trial in New York, in Wall Street's backyard.
Yeah, Wall Street.
Exactly, and Wall Street's good buddy Chuck Schumer was behind the whole thing.
Oh,
and his good buddy Preet Bharara was the prosecutor, and his judge, who he recommended to be for the bench, was the judge. And they brought Ross back from California. And he never got to object to the venue. It was never offered that. He should have been by the judge, and his lawyer didn't make sure that happened. And he was brought back to New York. And there was no way he was going to get a fair trial in New York. Chuck Schumer came out ahead of trial and said, "Congratulations, Eric Holder, you got your man." He hadn't even had trial. I'm like, wait a second. Just because you say it's true aren't we supposed to have a trial?
Right.
And of course, he's in New York. The senator from New York is saying he's guilty, and then we get a jury pool from New York.
And see, this is what we talk about all the time, a slippery slope. Where
that's right.
We're gonna have people watching this, definitely people listening. We got a lot of people listening on the podcast, and some people just feel like it's okay to play this sideline. And one thing we've said all year, Bitcoin Day has repeated all year, is that this is the year of choosing sides.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we see where we're going. Digital currency will be a part of the future. Decentralization will be a part of the future. You being able to be a private citizen again will be the future. So it's now to the point where you need to decide if you do want to be this private citizen on your own, or are you going to continue to allow our government to do some of these unjust and unfair things that not only ours have done, I mean, many governments around the world have done.
That's right.
These are the stories that highlight that. When people say, well, it's not a big deal, or everything's okay, everything's fine, it's like, well, what about the people over here who literally, you got a guy getting life in prison, and he was tried in a state he doesn't live, doesn't work, or anything like that. And I mean, that's the end of the story, and that's a non-violent offender. So
that's correct. No history of violence at all.
And you talked to us earlier about a guy who I guess was a kidnapping,
sexual trafficking young girls into prostitution. He got 8 years.
8 years for sexual trafficking.
Oh yeah,
for years of it.
And I mean, we hear all the time, rapists get 4 to 6 years.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you could
torturers get let out.
Yeah. So,
absolutely.
That's exactly why we like to highlight this stuff for those who are listening, because if it can happen to one of us, it can happen to anybody. And
absolutely.
the last thing you want is to be that person without a support, support behind you to kind of at least stand up for you and do things for you.
Yeah, and also I just want to emphasize what you said, because I absolutely agree with you. Yes, let's hope that being a free citizen and having decentralization is part of our future, but there's no guarantee of this.
Right.
And as you say, we're really at a tipping point in history right now. The surveillance state. Now, Ross created Silk Road because he wanted to provide a free market that was private. He was concerned about privacy. And of course, that in the last 5 years since he was arrested, the surveillance state has metastasized. I just read an article this morning. They're putting surveillance equipment in vacuum cleaners. They're increasing the amount of cameras on us. I mean, it's like we are, under surveillance, and you cannot have a free society without having a private one. It's just not. And so I totally agree with you that people have to understand it's not just about Ross. It's not just about individuals who've gotten caught in that net. It's our whole way of life. It's our freedom.
Oh yeah.
So, one of the things you're saying is kind of going back to the beginning. So he created this website to allow, people around the world to basically buy what they want, right? How did he get started? Was he a developer to begin with? Did he already have websites he wanted to do this? Was this the lucky one? Or is this something that, one of these topics that he always thought about and he was like, hey, I got a way to fix this problem in the world?
He actually was, just an idealistic guy in his mid-20s who got turned on by the Ron Paul campaign and started reading Austrian economics and about free markets. And he actually created a video game about those things and almost got it published, but then didn't, and turned to the internet. He's never had computer programming skills, which is why it's like, oh, really? You think that he developed this whole thing on his own and he kept it going on his own from his laptop? I mean,
isn't it true?
He's a genius.
Isn't it true? One of the guys that helped him develop it, he used to work for PayPal, didn't he?
I think so. Richard Bates, he turned to him for help. And he told Richard Bates, hey, I'm out of this. I can't take the stress. And he testified to that in court. And he was the only live witness who ever said Ross had anything to do with the site.
Wow.
Or was DPR or anything. But in any case, no, he had no programming training. He was trained in physics. He worked in a solar energy lab and then he had a master's degree in material science. He's a scientist oriented
So
person.
he got a master's degree in science. So he's in school until at least 24 years old? 25?
Yeah, I guess. Well, I don't know. Gosh.
Well, I mean,
I'm not sure, but early 20. Yeah, right. He went through college and 4 years of college, and then another 2 years. So yeah, you're right.
And then and then 5 years, within the next 5 to 6, 7 years, the government says he created, this mastermind criminal enterprise on the internet, and went to prison from there.
Right, he was 26 when he created it. Right, when he made this site, put it on the internet. Yeah.
Okay, so
he's 26 years old, and to give him life, as if people don't mature, as if he would ever, if he got out, when he gets out, would ever break the law again. I mean, you don't, it's terribly, well, it's so unnecessary besides everything else.
How often do you get a chance to speak to him?
Well, I relocated to Colorado so I could visit him on weekends. And other people visit him occasionally too. But I live here now. Well, I'm moving, but I'm staying here now. So that's every weekend that they don't have a lockdown or there's not a problem. And so I felt it was very important for me to do that. My husband and I have an internet business, so we're able to do that. But I just felt like so many guys in prison, it's so cruel. They're being warehoused. Their families can't afford to go flying to see them. They don't get visits for years sometimes. And luckily for Ross, we have an internet business and can be flexible. I don't have little children or anything like that. And so we see him often, but this is terrible. They move people so far from their homes. And apparently supposedly there's new policies that they're going to try to not do that as much. I don't know. I hope so.
Well, if they stop doing it, it's definitely because of the money. And that's why it's just, kind of stop, begin with, or slow down. It costs so much money to relocate anybody,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is a great subject, and I'm glad to have you here for this subject going into the new year, simply because, like I said before, it's time to choose a side. And also prison reform is a big topic now. A lot of people talking about prison reform. So I wanted to ask, what steps are being taken to try and either change the outcome of the trial or to get them pardoned?
Well, to change the outcome of a trial, there's one last ditch pretty hard to achieve effort that's called a habeas petition that's due next June. And it basically is saying he needs a new trial for various reasons and presenting that to a judge and in New York. And the judge decides, oh yeah, he needs a new. It was going to be the same judge who sentenced him to life, but thankfully she retired, and that's a good news for anyone that she is no longer a judge. But in any case, we don't know who the judge will be. So the other real effort is to have the president commute Ross's sentence. And he has shown that he is for criminal justice reform, which includes prison, which includes sentencing. He wants to sign it. It's the Senate that's hanging it up.
Well, I was just about to say that. I'm sure President Trump, I'm sure he's down to sign that just because of those he knows who will pee off in the government as well.
Well, I hope so. I think that I don't know. We're hoping. We have a petition to him. It has now over 108,000 signatures, which is great. I'm aiming for 500,000, but hey, we're on our way. And I want to be able to say to him, look, this many people care about this. This is something you need to look at. This sentence puts us all in peril. This is wrong. Oh, yeah. So we're hopeful. It's hard to do, but you're left with very few options at this stage.
Now, going back to the trial, the two government agents that I believe again was like a Secret Service agent, and I'm not sure if the other one was DEA or FBI.
It was DEA, and the Secret Service guy was on assignment from the NSA as well, by the way.
Right.
But
and
anyway,
he actually at the time was the head of the digital, basically cryptocurrency division of the Secret Service when this all went down. So this guy, he's the person the world is supposed to trust and do the right thing. I mean, he's at the tip of the iceberg.
They take an oath. They take an oath.
Right.
Yeah. Do your job.
And that's something I want to highlight because it's unfortunate. And I know no one likes to believe it or point it out and say that good people or, bad people are in good jobs. But I mean, it's something we have to point out. There are bad people.
Yeah, there's lots of them.
Bad people in the military. There's bad people, period. There's bad people everywhere.
Yeah, you don't need a conspiracy. You just need inadequacy.
Right. So,
that's right.
Were those two, were they part of the same trial as far as in New York, or did they receive a separate one?
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to just say for people, it's our founders who founded this country and wrote our Constitution and the Bill of Rights that says, don't trust your government. They said it. Thomas Jefferson said, it's our duty, if the government is oppressive, to push back. They knew that there weren't only good people in the government. Absolutely. It's very dangerous to just assume that people at all, you just don't know. And just because they're in the government certainly doesn't mean they're honest or good. As far as the trial, the horrible part about those guys is they were not allowed to be told to the jury. The jury, we tried, the Ross's defense tried, and the prosecution fought it and said, well, if you bring up those guys, it's going to ruin our investigation. So our lawyer goes, okay, we'll wait, and you can try.
Right. They weren't allowed to bring up. They weren't allowed to bring up the Secret Service and the DEA agent during the trial of their involvement.
That is correct. The jury was not allowed to know that two corrupt agents had full access to the Silk Road, had the ability to even act as DPR. They could change anything on the site. They could had keys, passwords. Yeah, no, that's the real crime about it. I mean, they're criminals. Yeah, big deal. There's criminals and they were stealing, but who knows what else they were doing? And that evidence that they had complete control over was shown to the jury, but they didn't know that these guys existed. It didn't come out until 2 months later that they had full run of the site, that they were stealing. And this is a totally wrong. That could have changed the jury's mind right there.
Not change it. That should drop it, honestly.
I know.
I hate to say it. I mean, whether it was somebody who's innocent or an actual guilty criminal who's done the worst things. If you got two government agents doing those things with you in the same boat with you, then I mean, this trial is over. What are we even discussing?
Well, that's why they didn't want it mentioned. Yeah. The prosecution fought it, and the judge gave in. And they weren't allowed to even go near it. It's like the judge would shut it down if it came anywhere close to mentioning either of those guys. Man. Well, actually, they only knew about one because the prosecution hid the existence of the Secret Service guy until after trial. The judge didn't even know about him. They didn't tell her, and they knew.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, is it true they really convicted him without a victim? There were no victims
Oh, yeah,
stated.
no victims were brought forward at trial. They didn't say Ross. No one came forward to say Ross had harmed them in any way at trial.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out is how do you convict somebody of something without a second party? That's crazy.
It's called New York bankers.
New York bankers, man.
Yeah, I think Ross crossed the wrong people.
Yeah.
And I do believe that they were very worried about this upstart new currency. What's this, a currency? What do you mean? And that people are using this currency? We don't control? Oh, no, this will not be allowed. And didn't really hit home for me until I saw the sentences of the other Silk Road defendants. The biggest actual drug dealer on the site, he got 10 years. And it goes down from there.
Wow.
They didn't care about drugs as far as I could tell. Mm-hmm. It was the Bitcoin. It was the rebellious. It was the platform. It was the idea.
This idea that you can buy and trade billions of dollars.
Well, it wasn't billions,
worth of goods,
anyway.
And the government not get a piece of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Multi-millions, but yeah.
Multi-millions. They're like, well, I'm just thinking about the future because they're like,
okay, true. And of course, there's lots of darknet markets now.
And that's the thing. As you all say, Bitcoin, they all say, is whack-a-mole.
It's whack-a-mole. You can't stop them.
Of course, whack-a-mole, perfect. But the judge is like, this will be a deterrent. And meanwhile, right after his sentence, they spiked. Yeah. And of course, it's not a deterrent. And they don't seem to be going after them. I mean, I'm kind of like, oh, I guess you got your trophy. Okay, fine.
So one thing.
Meanwhile, let me just say, the guy who took up the baton, I guess, and started or is running Silk Road 2.0, Blake Benthal, he was in custody for 13 days and he's free.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Wrap your head around that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, there's good people and bad people in all these agencies, government, everything is crazy. People don't realize it. It was even crazier is how we allow this to continue to happen. So real quick before I ask you the next question, where can people sign the petition at? For those who've been listening so far, where can they sign that petition? Yeah,
just go to freeross.org. There's a big red banner on the homepage. That's probably the easiest. It will take you to change.org, which is a separate entity. If you're just typing, it's freeross.org/petition. And yes, please sign it. You don't even have to know much about the case or think much about or agree with anything we've said. Just the sentence. Just double life plus 40 years.
Double life plus 40 years running an internet company.
Just a sentence.
Yeah. For a nonviolent first-time offender with no victim's name in a trial, if you think that alone, that's all we're asking about this with this petition, that this sentence should be reevaluated, that this is a wrong sentence.
Absolutely.
Now, one thing, every time we see Ross's name or the case and name in the story, one of the questions we always have, and I see some of our guests are asking now, is what happened to all the Bitcoins that were on the site and then Ross's personal Bitcoins as well?
And by the way, Ross was running a Bitcoin or starting to try to figure out how to set up a Bitcoin exchange. And he had been trading in Bitcoin way before that. And in fact, he told me about it. He was so excited. And I said, oh, should I get some? And he goes, no, Mom, it's too volatile. I think you shouldn't get any. I'm like, why did you say that? But anyway, it's very cheap then. But so he had a lot of Bitcoin.
Real quick, Ron, for the
government seized it. The government seized Ross's Bitcoin, and they seized Bitcoin from the Silk Road, 183 million, I think, or dollar. Well, it changes, it fluctuates in value, so it's hard to say. But there's still a lot of it unaccounted for, a lot of it.
So how did he personally turn over his to them when you say they seized? Well,
they seized his laptop. It was on his laptop.
Oh, okay. They figured out how to get into it.
Yeah. Okay. And no, but they actually have put a fine on him of 183 million, which was what they estimate the value of Silk Road, and he's supposed to pay that back to them. So they took supposedly the Bitcoin from his laptop and applied it to that. So now he only owes 140 million. Yeah, it's no problem.
This sounds sounds just if I've ever heard it.
And I want to ask you, after this has happened, we've had a few forks. We've had Bitcoin Cash. We've had Bitcoin SB. So he has access to basically double the amount just in different currencies. You have to go through a process.
Well, so he doesn't, but they do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he does. So that's why I'm trying to figure out what did they do I'm sure they auctioned off some of them to Tim Draper.
Well, yeah, he wasn't and an interesting story about that. Yeah, Tim Draper, and who's very supportive, by the way. He thinks Ross should get out, and others. But one of the guys who did buy the Bitcoin from the site, he bought $20,000 worth, I believe. He told me that they didn't reveal who a lot of the other people were who got the auctioned Bitcoin, and he's asked them, they won't tell him, and he's even put in FOIA requests and they won't tell him. The other thing they told him was, if you cannot donate those Bitcoin to Ross Ulbricht's defense.
Wow. They're just making it up as we go.
Yeah. And he, anyway, so that's pretty outrageous too. But no, he's been trying to find out where did the rest of it go? Do these guys have friends where they went in there? Where the rest? It's not accounted for. It's like, who else where is it? The government was running that auction.
Oh, I mean, and that's one of the things we always talk about. It's like, again, it's not even beat around the bush. The money is stolen. It's been stolen. And like I said, the most unfortunate thing is that these are the people. You wake up, ask for us. And sometimes Wednesday mornings they have new cryptocurrency rules and laws we've never heard of, and we're like, who voted on this? Like, when did this vote happen? Who decided this course of action? It's just like, no, they're just going about their own way.
They do what they want. And I've noticed. And I met a woman, for example, at PorkFest. We were sitting around a campfire, and she was going to go to prison like in the next 2 weeks. It was all new and everything. And so she would buy Bitcoin with dollars, and people would, and it wasn't regulated, it wasn't controlled, and they've thrown her in prison for it. And and the prosecutor said, "You are trying to undermine the economy of the United States." And throw her in prison. Wow. I'm like, wow.
Free market. Yeah, I thought we believed in it for a while.
The economy is undermining us.
They don't believe in it. No, not at all.
So at this point, for Ross's prosecution and his attorney, how did that go? Did they think he had a chance, or what were they looking at?
Oh, the defense?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they felt that they were very much shut down by the judge, that they weren't allowed to bring witnesses, that they weren't allowed to cross-examine properly, that that lawyer was really upset. And he had a lot of experience. He's like 30 years in practicing law. And no, the trial was really shocking. It was shocking.
So was there anything the lawyer could have done as far as to the judges and the prosecution as far as withholding witnesses? There was no type of recourse for them to say, hey, I want to file this appeal to get this heard, or was he just getting shut down every turn?
Well, he was getting shut down, but then he did appeal. We did appeal to the Second Circuit, but it's all in New York. It's all, I don't know. I'm sorry to say, I've lost my faith in the courts and the justice system. I think there are good judges, but I just don't think most people stand a chance. I don't.
Yeah.
Not unless you have millions of dollars of fiat currency willing to give over, because that's what it's really about.
Yeah, civil forfeiture is getting out of hand.
That too. Well, that's another example of how they use the drug war. Like we were talking about earlier, they're using the drug war to justify their surveillance state. Oh, well, we've got to get those drug dealers, so we've got to spread surveillance throughout everything. Same with civil forfeiture, right?
Yep.
And there's this drug exception in the courts too. It's like, well, if it's a drug case, then the Constitution can just go right out the window, because this is drugs and we need to be able to handle this. And it's the same, like you say, with civil asset forfeiture. That represents billions of dollars in their budget, billions. And they, people aren't even convicted. They're not even charged. They just take their cash.
They steal it, yeah. And they've been doing it to drug dealers for a while. They'll keep them around, kind of layer, big time people, and they'll try and just let them make as much money just so they can take it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Numerous times.
Oh, so they don't mind them selling drugs to people. I thought they wanted to protect us. Oh, gee, what a surprise.
That's why we're out there, make sure those poppy fields are growing and flourishing.
Yeah, I got to keep them protected.
But so
keep that drug war going. If they stopped the drug war and drugs, became legal, the cartels would go away, the violence would go away. There wouldn't be any incentive. It's kind of like you don't have Smirnoff vodka and Absolute having gang wars in the streets over their vodka,
Exactly.
It's like prohibition doesn't work.
Right. But
they did in when alcohol was prohibited, but not now.
Well, as long as the mainstream media is still controlled by the same 5 or 6 folks,
Yes.
we know that storyline would never come out.
Yeah, exactly.
So how has it been as far as you getting help with this? You know, have you had different groups reach out? You know, I know there's a lot of groups that want to reform prison reformation, whether it's the policy or the actual execution of it. Those who stand up for those who've been unfair sentencing and all that. What's been the reception? Have you had any?
Oh, yeah, we had 21 organizations from across the political spectrum join Ross's petition to the Supreme Court in 5 amicus briefs. It's called amicus brief, where it's a friend of the court, and they write why this should be heard and what's wrong with it. And there were people from the left, people from libertarians, people from the right, conservatives. They went all across the spectrum, and they're all interested in reform. And in addition, we've had help just in general from people. We have in fact, there's a widespread support page on our website of people who are fairly well known and gave us quotes. I need to get a quote from you guys.
Oh, and that's right. And, so just to let everybody know, we met Lynn at a World CryptoCon. And you know, as soon as we saw the free Ross, we had to make a beeline over there. And then of course, it find out it was his mother. You know, it was an awesome experience.
Yeah, and actually, you were very eloquent on the video, and I could probably grab something from that. But anyway, yeah, it's 35 people and growing of people who are coming out and saying, look, and Tim Draper is on there, coming out and say, look, this is wrong. This needs to change. And but also we've had financial support, and then luckily, when we had the most financial support, Bitcoin was 600.
Oh wow!
So luckily, I mean, people go, oh my God, it's in the toilet, and I'm like, well, yeah. I remember very recently it was at 600, so I'm not that. I mean, I hope it goes up, obviously.
Right.
But in any case, that's allowed us to the contributions. Roger Ver being the greatest one and the one who's but many. I mean, not just him, but he's been amazing. Who's helped us get to this point. It's so expensive, and so yeah. I mean, if people want to donate. You can donate on our website, freeross.org, because we continue to have expenses. We continue to have lawyer bills. But yeah, so we definitely, the crypto community, I'd say, of any, and the libertarians, the entire Libertarian Party came out officially asking for a pardon for Ross.
Wow. Nice. And cool. Shout out to Roger Ver, because we do give him a hard time on the show, but you know what, that is the positive thing about this community. When everybody does see all the infighting and stuff, it's because, as we always say, we're trying to grow it. But yeah, when it's something that's wrong like this, the Charlie Shroom case, when he was 22 or 23, 24 years old, got 2 years in prison as well. It's good to see other people in the communities try to step up and help out where they can. When we see the corruption is I mean, just looking at this year alone, what's quote unquote regulations. I mean, it lasted longer than we thought, but last year, around October, November last year, we literally caught the regulation cycle coming out of January of this year. And I mean, they took it and ran wild with it to the point where, I mean, it's not even that it's unjust. It's illegal on the government side, some of the things they've been doing. I mean, literally, we have woken up in the middle of the week and things we've been doing for the last year or so, a couple of years, which have been perfectly legal, became illegal. Just illegal.
Wow.
And then you're
some bureaucrat decided. Yes.
And they're retroactively getting people for stuff
that
they did when it didn't even exist. And that's one thing about innovation.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's one thing about innovation. If you're innovative and you do something, they always have to try and get their piece, because, as we know, bureaucracies are definitely not ahead of the curve. They always wait. They're reactive, not proactive. So
absolutely,
if somebody comes up with something, here they come. Oh yeah, give us a little piece of that, please. So
absolutely, that's a really good point. And the thing is, like Ross, I mean, being an innovator, pioneer person, it's like, if we keep punishing our pioneers in this draconian way, we're not going to have any more pioneers that want to come forward. It's like, how do you move forward? And you're right. And wow. Well, more people should know about that. I have a friend who's a crypto lawyer, and she's like, you can imagine.
Looking at the broad picture, I mean, I'm sure that they don't really care here, because I mean, at the end of the day, our government is really outsourced. It's outsourced to very wealthy people. Some happen to be in the United States, some aren't in the United States. Many aren't in the United States. So to them, I think they could really care less about our pioneers, because they're like, oh, we can have some in our own country.
Yeah, they don't care. No, bureaucracy is and innovation, as you say, are diametrically opposed. Bureaucrats are locked, they're locked in to whatever system of power that they have. And that goes down to, the DMV and all the way up to, it's a mentality. It's a mentality that.
Right. Now, you said for those who want to get a closer look at this, you actually have a internet series already up, correct?
Yeah, it's called Railroaded, the Targeting and Caging of Ross Ulbricht. And it's on our website in a big banner, another banner on our homepage you can click, and there's an audio version. It's on iTunes and SoundCloud and YouTube, because there's a little video that can go with it if you want. And there's also a written version. There's almost 400 footnotes. It's based on the public record. It's not our opinion. It's nothing we've said. It's what the government has said, or what's in the record, or trial transcripts. And because we realized not only did, so many people, the media is very shallow in their reporting. It just goes about this deep. And I didn't even realize a lot of this stuff. And so we thought, God, we got to put together a narrative. And it's actually it's pretty interesting. It sounds a little boring because, the public record, but it's actually pretty compelling when you start reading about the investigation. If you don't believe that there's corruption in our government, just read that or listen to it. And
we always say
it's convincing. Not you, but I mean, you said
we always say it's going to play out like a movie. I mean, this is literally going to be a movie when it's all said and done. I mean, the part hopefully I hope that they say the truthful parts about it.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I'm a little scared of the movie because Hollywood doesn't tend to have very accurate trails, but yeah, they like the sensationalism. But
I'll say sensationalism, and the good guys are always the boys in blue, huh?
Yeah, I guess so.
So hopefully we'll see what happens. Well, we're in LA, so if we start hearing about some nonsense, we'll start popping up on set.
Oh yeah, good. Let me know.
But for those listening again, that's called Railroaded, the Targeting and Caging of Ross Ulbricht. And you can see that on freeross.org as well. And so as far as movies now, so have other people, I guess, approached you with any interest, any business endeavors from this?
A lot of people have, as far as documentaries. Of course, Alex Winter made a really great one called Deep Web.
Yeah.
And yeah, but he's great. I mean, he's just an all-around great person, and he cares about presenting an objective point of view. Other documentaries, like A&E did one, and they talk about the same agents we've talked about. They don't even mention they're corrupt. I'm like, how do you manage not to mention they're corrupt in prison in your documentary? Well, they're very selective about what they want to, the narrative they want to tell, just like the prosecution was very selective in the narrative he wanted to tell, and the judge allowed. No legal things that were sold on Silk Road were allowed to be mentioned. Marijuana was maybe mentioned once. Nothing about restricting things that created victims. It was all drugs, 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 hard drugs. And of course, the jury. And then, of course, murder for hire, which was not charged at trial. And it was charged in Maryland based on the corrupt agent's testimony, by the way, which has now been dismissed with prejudice, can never be brought up again. So now that they've used those charges to deprive Ross of bail, to prejudice the jury because they were allowed to talk about it, not charge him. They go, no, listen, we're not charging him with this. We don't really, there's no murders, but he did it. Just take our word for it. And the jury's like, oh, well, you're from the government. It must be true. Right. I mean, or it's convincing. And then the sentence, she used it in the sentencing, which was argued to the Supreme Court that this is a violation of the Sixth Amendment. Judges are not permitted by the Constitution to use uncharged crimes that were not ruled on by a jury to decide a sentencing. It's supposed to be 12 juries, members of your peers, not one judge. And she did it anyway. She violated the Constitution in his sentence. And then, and of course, he's been smeared in the court of public opinion terribly. For sure. There's always people, oh yeah, he murdered people. I'm like, well, who died? I mean, who was murdered? Who was murdered? And where's the proof? And why wasn't it a trial? And blah. But they did the same thing to Julian Assange about rape charges. Oh, but those have been dropped. I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting because now he's thought of as, it's, and other people have told me this is routine for them. This is routine.
So
this is our government again.
It's just that he actually has a following, which makes it a little bit different now. So coming from that, you talked about Julian Assange. You have your son. what's the other guy from NSA?
Snowden.
Yeah,
Snowden. So Snowden, I mean, he's literally among those names when you talk about him. How does he feel about that?
Ross?
Yes.
Well, of course, he supports them. And even before he was arrested, I remember talking to him about Snowden and saying, "Well, I really think what he did was good. It's revealed this." And he goes, "Well, I'm glad to hear you say that." Because it's all about privacy. And Snowden came out publicly, and there's the videos on our website saying, "Well, yeah, the NSA was involved in the Silk Road case. It's obvious. Of course they were. Well, that's illegal." And by the way, for Bitcoin people, the NSA, it came out in Snowden documents last March with The Intercept that the NSA was targeting and going after Bitcoin users a few months before Ross was arrested, which also means, of course, they were going after Silk Road. This is illegal, okay? And they did it
earlier this year, didn't it?
Well, it came out this year.
Right. Yeah, we saw this year when it came out. We were like, wait, what is going on?
Yeah.
Right.
Which proves our point that we made before, that it wasn't about drugs. They were after the Bitcoin. The fact that the NSA was after Bitcoin users proves it. They weren't after terrorists like they're supposed to be. No, well, maybe they were too, but I mean, that they were very much concentrating on going after Bitcoin, sticking the NSA on people that were using Bitcoin.
Yeah, definitely targeted.
In secret, illegally.
And that is what we're dealing with.
That is what we're dealing with.
Yeah, got to keep the fight going because this is ridiculous.
Well, because otherwise we could all end up in a gulag. Okay, you don't keep the fight going. And as Solzhenitsyn, he wrote about it. He said, you know what, we just rolled over, and then we end up in the gulag and losing our country. And it can happen. Yeah. It can happen.
Oh, I mean,
it's already happening.
That's right. Give me all your weapons, people. You don't need.
That's right.
You don't need automatic weapons for hunting. You need a pistol.
Put this Google Home in your house. Tell us everything you're doing right now.
You don't need any weapons. You don't need anything. We're gonna take care of everything just for you.
Yeah, you'll be safe. No worries.
Right. So yeah, we basically we have the people on the other side of the fence. So we kind of asking, well, hey, does he deserve anything? And that's one of the things we want to make clear. We're not saying, I mean, honestly, I'm saying I don't think he deserved anything because, again, are we going to arrest the Craigslist folks? We just shut down Backpage that had been operating for literally about 10 years now. Yeah. We know, everyone knew the sex trade was going on Backpage. So none of these characters, I mean, Craigslist is still up. None of these people are getting arrested. So for those who we did see in the comments, are kind of asking, I mean, at worst, a few years, but if nothing, I mean,
he's done 5. Just so you know, he's done 5 in a maximum security prison where the government puts its most violent offenders and most dangerous gangs. And actually, he refused to assault another inmate, which put him in danger, and he's had to be in protective custody because he's not a violent person. And the thing is, Ross has paid a price for creating this thing. Look. Do 26-year-olds do things that maybe aren't a little reckless, really? And that they, come on. But, he's matured. I think, I know that he really wants to contribute to society. I know he wouldn't hurt anyone. He never has, if he got out. I mean, and so, yeah, okay, he did 5 years for creating a site that allowed such and such. Okay. I think that's plenty. I know he wouldn't commit another crime.
Well, again, the bottom line is he's definitely not the first or last person to create these things. And again, it's one of the things where it could the same type of reasons they have against them can be used with so many different websites. Absolutely. It can be used with banks. It can be used with ATMs. People are talking about Bitcoin is being used for drugs and stuff. And we're like, what were people using before Bitcoin?
Cash. Like you said in your video, well, we don't take away money.
Right.
It's
you got banks laundering money literally by the billions on a daily basis.
No repercussions, by the way. HSBC was caught laundering drug money, billions or millions anyway. I don't know if it was billions, might have been. Yeah, nobody went to jail. And I'm not saying, I don't want to fill the prisons with nonviolent people. Right. Look, you can have an ankle bracelet and restore, but let's have some justice here where people get similar. It's even the law to have similar sentences for similar offenses. Yeah. The guy who did Silk Road 2, which was bigger and had more listings is free after 13 days. And Ross gets double life plus 40 years. There's something seriously wrong here.
Yeah. And I may have my tinfoil hat on, but in my opinion, when I read the story about Silk Road 2.0, the first thing I thought was when they saw how Silk Road worked, Silk Road 2.0 was a honeypot, and whoever put it together, that what they did is they allowed people to go and purchase and whatever, so they could collect as much information as they could on people. Then when they shut it down, the person who started it didn't go to jail because he was in on it. That's what I think personally.
You're probably that's actually a very convincing story.
I mean, they've done it before.
But they obviously don't mind if people sell drugs then, because they were Silk Road 2 was selling more drugs than Silk Road 1.
Exactly.
So they also, oh, by the way, another site, Playpen, which was trafficking in children, okay, and child porn. Prosecutors dropped it. They didn't want to. They said they didn't want to reveal their investigative methods. I wonder if there were some powerful people that might have been ruined if that case went to trial. I don't know, but sure. This is children. Okay, there was no child porn on Silk Road, none.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is, again, for those who think it's just because of the case that they brought to it, those are the people that are hard to reach anyway. They had their mind made up. This is what the government told us. This is what we believe in.
Yeah, there's always going to be people like that.
Right. For those who've taken any type of look can already see how this is just a twisted case. One thing, a couple last quick questions. First, someone asked about how's Ross doing as well as his health, his mental and physical health.
Yeah, well, he works out, so he even in a little tiny cell, when he's kept there, he works out, so he looks good. He looks healthy, but mentally and emotionally, he's inspiring. He absolutely, first of all, refuses to be bitter. He struggled and he conquered being bitter against the judge. He even tweeted that or wrote a tweet that someone else put up there. He doesn't have access, but that he forgives her, which is, I'm struggling with that. He always makes and if I start going, oh, I hate this person, he goes, no, we're not going to do that. That's just, we just got to be positive. And so he's a positive force in the prison. He just inspires me to keep going because he's always good-natured, fun to be with, hasn't lost his spirit, hasn't been crushed. And yeah, he's handling it. It's tough. It's very tough, but he is. And right now he's in protective custody, which means he's literally been in a metal box for 3 months. I mean, pretty rough. They have allowed him, the only book he's allowed is a Bible, and he's reading the entire Bible. He's just, writing and just, he's handling it. And I just hope and pray that he gets moved to a good place that's safer, or at least somewhat less dangerous soon.
From the moment he was charged, has he been locked up since he's been charged, or the moment they found him?
He was arrested. Yeah, the moment he's been arrested, he was put in solitary initially for 6 weeks because he was high profile. I'm like, okay, and then he went to the detention center in Manhattan and Brooklyn, another one, and then he was sent to a regular penitentiary with where they put the most violent. Besides the Supermax, it's not the Supermax, but the next level down people. Not everybody in there is violent. Right, for example, just an example, his good friend Tony, who's in there, is there for marijuana. Life. He has a life sentence for marijuana.
Wow.
The federal prisons in Colorado.
In Colorado.
And it's legal.
And it's legal, state level, but he's serving life because somebody 13 years ago claimed he sold the marijuana. They didn't even catch him with any marijuana. And he's got a life sentence. This is going on in our country. This is disgusting, and we're paying for it. I mean, every life.
That's the crazy thing when people really don't understand that we are paying for all this. Whenever people have, I'm for this or I'm against it, or I'm like, you do realize, especially for the people that's for all these nonviolent offenders.
That's right.
We are getting our pockets turned inside out.
Totally. You like paying taxes? Okay. Right. Because there's so many people making money off this. This is the biggest money maker. It's so entrenched as an industry.
Human capital.
Yeah.
Human trafficking.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We haven't
That's
solved the biggest issue, which is private prisons, prisons in general. Being on the stock market, you can invest in them. So
that is correct. And even judges and prosecutors can invest in them.
Exactly.
And they're the biggest lobbyists among, well, they're one of the 5 biggest lobbyists against marijuana legalization. Gee, I wonder why. Might cut down on their inventory, you know.
So,
and you know, it's appalling. It's really appalling. It's so un-American. And it wasn't always like this before the drug war. There wasn't. You know, the prison population has metastasized 800% since the drug war. 800% more people. And I read a scary statistic, which is the prison population is larger than 11 states. So if it were a state, its own little state, it would be bigger than 11 other states. That's how many people are being put into cages, and over 60% are drug offenders.
And
very lucrative to
the United States is leading the way in prisoning people.
Whole world.
But we're in everybody else's business. Again, one of the things we just try to remind people that everything is not what it seems. So I guess the reason why I was asking that, when did Ross initially know while he was still free that, hey, you know, the federal government might be coming after him, or was it just a surprise when they just, you know, knocked on the door and caught him off guard?
Well, I don't really know. I assume that, you know, I think they caught him completely off guard.
I don't think
he would have been somewhere else.
Right. Well, that's what I was asking. I'm like, they must have really caught him off guard with this.
Yeah. That's the thing. He was in the library downloading the Colbert Report.
Wow.
He wasn't even, you know, and then got messaged by an undercover agent to go on Silk Road, which he did. And there's a whole story on Railroaded that I believe that is he was brought back. He left and then he was brought back in to help out with some stuff. He had some access, and that wasn't a smart thing. And right. I wish he hadn't. But you know, and so he got back on, and then they grabbed him.
I've read that part. The main part of that was the agent was the one who invited him back and was involved. Something that I'm sure they conveniently left out of that story.
Sounds a little entrapment.
Yeah, it does sound like entrapment, but they entrap people all the time, and it doesn't matter. Entrapment's apparently not a very strong argument.
Right. And just like somebody said, you know, this is all, you know, not even 2018, it's about to be 2019. This is happening right now today. You know, and this is what we're dealing with. But again, this is why we're all about privacy, you know, privatizing our lives again.
Absolutely.
Private, not the actual government. The government should be public. Public citizens should be private.
Absolutely. They should be transparent. We should be private. Somehow it's flipping.
Right.
Hey guys, how did this happen?
That's what happens. You know, people don't like to believe us when we say this, but it is what it is. And that's what happens when you get real gangsters in government. And we actually have some real G's in government. They just wear suits, but I mean, they are not playing around. It's funny.
They're frightening, very scary people, actually.
Right. 50 Cent even called out, what was it, when he called out the one politician or something, saying he's going to try to tell on Donald Trump.
Oh, man.
And then President Trump made it illegal to quote unquote snitch like the same day. So we're just like, I mean, what's going on right now?
Yeah,
like,
what's going on?
These are criminals at work. Not saying our presidents, but saying some of these people in some of these positions are definitely exhibiting criminal behavior.
Yeah, they're the ones we know about. Never mind the ones that are behind the
really
scenes.
Good ones you don't even hear about.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so with all that, you know, before we let you go again, we definitely want to remind everybody, if you haven't already, sign a petition. You know, if you believe in a just and fair system, which we do, there's no reason why a nonviolent first-time offender should be spending double life plus 40 years in prison. I mean, come on, just that sentence in general. You're going to tell somebody they have double life and plus 40 years in prison, and they haven't committed any type of violent crime. It just doesn't make sense. So if you can agree with that, make sure you go to freeross.org, sign that petition. We're on the run up to 100,000 to sign. As Lynn said, they're at about 108,000 now. We want to get up to 500,000, and let's make history. Let's get this in front of the president. Let's get this in front of the right people, because at this point, it's not just about Ross and what he did or what he didn't do. Yeah. It's about those things like, in his case that was tried in a different state, which he's never worked or lived. How would you feel if the United States just said, here, whatever country, here, China, here, Russia, here, South Africa, take this guy and you just try him? And, you know, how would you feel if you're away from your land and you're being tried? Just think about that stuff. And then even worse, how would you feel if you're being tried and they left out important details? Like there were 2 federal agents involved in your case, not only involved, but they also received prison time. They were guilty.
Right.
Left all of this out of the case, people. And again, this is something that, you know, you can get behind and agree with. We encourage you to go to freeross.org, as well as if you don't know much about the case, take a look at the, what would you call it, the documentary you all have up?
Railroaded.
Kind of, yeah, but railroaded. Yeah, we have an audio, a written, and then a little video that goes with the audio if you want to watch on YouTube.
Okay, Railroad is the targeting and caging of Ross Ulbricht. This is going to be a case you will not hear the last of, because again, you know, we talk about Snowden, we talk about Assange. Ross Ulbricht is among those list of names of people who we believe have been done unjust by our government. This is something that we hope to turn around, not just allow it to happen this time through. So, because it could be any one of us, people. It
could be.
If you're in crypto, if you've been watching us or listening to us, it could be any one of us.
Yeah.
And you're going to want these laws already be set in stone where this is not okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, Lynn, did you have anything you want to leave everybody with?
Well, you guys have been great. What fun to talk to you. It's been really fun. I'm so glad we met. Just to reiterate, we are at a crossroads in history. And that's what King said before. And he's absolutely right. It's our choice. Are we going to go towards innovation and, you know, just good things and exciting things? Or are we going to take that road towards government control, surveillance, and crushing the pioneering spirit that needs to happen for innovation to occur? It's our choice. How do we want to live? And right now is crucial. Like you said, this is the time. It's happening. And so this is our case is one way to push back. But just in general, people need to understand that things are pretty dire right now. Yeah. The government is expanding rapidly, and so is the surveillance state, and it needs to be stopped.
And, you know, and we always try to tell people, you know, we're not doing this because we need it, people. We're just doing it because it's the right thing, you know.
Right.
You know, Lynn isn't facing, you know, while her son is in prison, she isn't facing the criminal trial. We aren't. But these are things where if you can sleep at night knowing you basically don't have control of your life. You know, we have a lot more freedom than many other countries. Let me be clear. We have a lot more freedom. However, that doesn't excuse the negligence on our government from doing the right things.
That's right, and we need to watch because we could lose our freedom.
Yeah,
we're freer now, but doesn't mean it's not a guarantee. There's no guarantee.
All it takes is one person, one group, too many drinks, and a good halftime speech. All right, and things go left really quick. I want to give some shout outs to some of our viewers again. Crypto Blood, what's going on? Lynn, you actually met Crypto Blood in Vegas as well. He was at a conference. FB Boss Lady, what's going on? Coin Hustle, Antonio, what's going on?
What's up?
Everybody. So really quick before we end, let's go ahead and do the 30,000 cryptic coin giveaway.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so we did a 30,000 cryptic coin giveaway to one winner, and you had to answer 10 questions on our scavenger hunt going through episodes 200 through 299. I'm gonna run through those answers really quick, and then we will present the winner. So first question, episode 200, we interviewed Sinclair Skinner. This company supports women farmers in what country? That was Zimbabwe. Question number 2, after episode 207, King hosted the show solo for an extended period of time. What episode did I rejoin? That was episode 220. This dino of the day was a former PayPal CEO and called Bitcoin a cult. What is the CEO's name? Bill Harris. Number 4, on the day we discussed Elon Musk talking to the creator of Dogecoin, who is the actor that was on my shirt? That is Larry David.
Oh, these are some good questions.
Yeah, somebody put Dustin Hoffman. I was like, wow, that's not close, but yeah, I don't look anything like it. But number 5.
Does Dustin Hoffman have t-shirts?
Yeah, I don't think so. Before discussing Ivy League cryptos, what does King suggest we do to lawmakers who want to stop Bitcoin? That answer is tar and feather.
I was going to say that we mentioned the judge, but listen, the only reason I didn't is because when this video gets around, last thing I want them to say is he's talking about going after sitting judges or judges who just retired. I don't want that.
Yeah,
but
gotta be careful what you say.
We need to bring back tar and feather, because I guarantee you, if they had to worry about getting tar and feather after the trial, hey, some things would change for the better.
Oh yeah.
You're probably right.
Exactly, or at least a neck. Number 6, during our interview with Crypto Blood, what did he say would come in 2019? And it was institutional money. It was a few other things that I let slide in there, but main thing was institutional money. Number 7, AARP described Bitcoin as a bunch of code that a bunch of blank, idealists, and blank who agree is worth real money. And that answer was criminals and speculators. So,
and these are the people, AARP.
I remember that.
Because those are the people that support New York government. Like, just it's that simple. They are all in bed together, and they're calling Bitcoin criminals and spectators. I think when was that article? Like a month or two ago?
About a month. Yeah, about a month ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
AARP is calling people who code a bunch of criminals
idealists and spectators.
Wow. So if you code now, you're a criminal. Okay.
Yeah. Well, if you use Tor, the government said you're a criminal too.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That is true.
They're trying to get that. So, and number 8, fill in the blank for our show opening, which is pretty easy. My name is King, and I'm Bitcoin Zay. We're here to bridge the gap between cryptocurrency and the community, Monday through Friday at 10ish. Everybody put that 10ish on there. Good. Number 9 on the show, featuring top blockchain colleges, which school was rated number 1 by CoinDesk, and that was Stanford. And last but not least, number 10, what is the name of the dino of the day on our show November 21st, 2018? And that was good old Nouriel Roubini, who is in bed as well. He's a professor at NYU. So just goes to show you, we got people coming from the same area. And for the moment you've been waiting for, the winner for the 30,000 cryptic coins is a tie. We actually have a tie. Oh, yeah. Wow. So we had 4 people out of the dozens that sent it in. We have 4 people who get every single answer correct. Some of our most loyal fans. So what we will do is we'll pick these names randomly out of a hat.
You got this fisherman hat.
Yeah, I got my fisherman. My dinos.
There we go. Catch some dinos in it.
Shake it up real good. All right. See what we got. And the winner is
30,000 Bitcoin or cryptic coin. Got you. You almost thought I was gonna say Bitcoin. People.
Joy Foster.
Joy Foster. Thank you.
Joy, thank you. Shout out to those questions in. Got them all right. The other winners were also, or the people who got it correct, were Cheryl, Milto, and Leroy. And what I will do is I'll talk to some of the guys at Cryptic Coin. We'll probably send you all some consolation prizes soon, just
we'll send you a little bit.
Absolutely. We'll send you some cryptic coins for that. Appreciate you for participating, but shout out to Joy Foster. We'll be sending you those free cryptic coins.
Nice.
And thank you everybody who participated as well. Glad to be doing show 300.
And I want to do a quick shout out to Harold George. Harold said he just chipped in $40 for Ross. Good luck.
Oh yeah.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's so nice. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Harold. And for anybody else who's chipping in as well, we appreciate it. For today's tips, want to thank Kevin Hodges again, Crypto Blood, and Sergeant Crypto for those tips as well. We'll use those to chip in as well. So,
thanks, guys. Really
much appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And as well, make sure you smash that like and share button, people. This is one of those videos we definitely want to get out there. So, again, for those who are in the crypto space, we know a lot of people came last year during the bull run. A lot of people are going to come next year during the next bull run. And before all they can think about is price, and how much money I can make and what coin is what, this is something that is very important in the community.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
The Silk Road case, I mean, I would say argue is one of the top 3 to 5 things you need to know when it comes to the history of Bitcoin in the community, because literally this was about someone having the ability to circumvent the government. That's really what it's about. Right. You're making sales. Regardless of what you're buying and selling, you're not paying the government to do it. You're not asking for their permission, and they reward that with double life sentences, people. So that's something we're totally against. So make sure you like and share this video, and go ahead and spread this as well. Lynn, we definitely appreciate you for being with us this long again today.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. Really fun. Really great to talk. We really covered some good stuff.
Yes. Absolutely. All right. So we'll stop this broadcast. Lynn, you can stay on. We'll have you on right after. And then for all those listening, again, thanks for watching and listening to our 300th episode. We're going to keep going until the government come knocking on that door one day. So we'll see what happens with this. I'm sure they'll love us for this one. Until next time, we'll see you all tomorrow at 10ish.
Finish.
Cheers.
Cheers.